So I'm smoking crack all day. I'm shooting ketamine at night. Everything in my system was shutting down. And I just remember, like, to my mom, looking at her for the first time and saying, you know, if I don't get help, I'm gonna die. You know, we grew up a normal kind of red-blooded American family. I had one older brother, my mom, my dad, myself. When they're younger, there was a lot of joy, a lot of laughter. And then something just started to change. My mother had become born again and really had made Jesus the Lord of her life. Unfortunately, my dad, I think, felt very strongly that he had to compete with Jesus as far as maybe from a relationship standpoint. We had come home from school and just remember the look on my mom's face, and we knew. And I just remember looking at my mom and said, "Daddy's gone again, isn't he?" And sure enough, he was. Part of the settlement with my dad at that time still was that he would get to have the kids on the weekends or every other weekend. It started to turn violent. It just seemed like beatings kind of became the norm. He liked to drink, but his main thing was like gambling. And so I found myself as a 8, 9, 10, 11-year-old boy growing up in bars. I didn't want to tell anybody. I was terrified of my father physically. My mom knew the Lord. You know, I was raised in the things of God. I had a love for Jesus as a small child. But as I got older, you know, I just couldn't really handle the rejection. How could there be a loving God who I can't see if my own father can't love me? And that became a very constant theme, and I just became very angry at God. After I graduated high school, I started to get involved with acid, LSD, mushrooms, Vicodins, angel dust, PCP. It just started to become a black hole. I just could not stand being sober. My mother made a decision when my dad left that she was going to raise her children. And she never dated anyone, never brought a man home. And then around 21, she decided she was going to get married. I remember this is a conversation my mother said to me right before she got married. It was, "Son, I love you. I'll do anything in the world for you. But until you're ready to get help, I can't help you." And she made a decision at that time to just sever ties and say, if you're going to live this lifestyle, you're going to have to do it somewhere else. To me, the one thing in my life that was a constant that would never leave me or reject me was my mother. And here she was abandoning me. And that just threw me off the deep end. I had no respect for myself. Therefore, I had no respect for anyone else. Doing whatever it took to get high became the way to get high. I was now living in a situation where I was living at a girl's house in their basement. The parents lived on the main floor smoking weed, and the cousin lived upstairs smoking crack. And I remember him saying, "Hey man, why don't you try this?" And so I started smoking crack. 2 or 3 years had gone by. That situation got so painful that finally I just packed up what little stuff I had. And I showed up on my parents' doorstep, 180 pounds, basically totally emaciated. And I basically said, if you don't take me in, I'm gonna die. Right at the end of August, beginning of September 2003, I found myself in a rehab. And I can remember sitting there the first night in rehab and just literally saying, you know, God, you know, if you're real, I need to know you're real. And I know there's a lot of stories in this book, but if I don't read something that gives me some kind of hope, I just don't think I'm gonna make it. I happened to come across Psalm 143, and I'm reading it, and it just talks about, you know, how David, his enemies had caught him and dragged him down into the pit. And just how he remembered, you know, all the good things the Lord had done in his life, and, you know, how if he spared him, that he would live for him and he would give his life for him. So 2 more days go by, and I'm reading that psalm every night. So the 3rd night comes, and Jesus just revealed himself to me. For the first time in my life, had revelation of the cross of Jesus Christ. I gave my life to Jesus that night, and inexplainably in an instant, like every bit of shame and guilt and condemnation that I had had over my life was broken. My sins were forgiven. The thing that I knew for the first time is this wasn't about my mother. This wasn't about religion. This wasn't about anything other than Jesus Christ being my Savior. If I could talk to you and you're out there and you're struggling with addiction and you're just feeling completely hopeless, I would tell you there's hope. I would tell you plain out flatly that Jesus Christ is your only answer. He is the one who can redeem your life from the most broken, darkest pit that you can conceivably be in.